Hi everyone, welcome to the Time Form and Sporting Life Saturday racing preview. I'm Ben Linfoot, delighted to be joined by Brocklebank and Kieran Clark to go through a couple of really competitive handicaps at Warwick and Kempton, with the Classic Chase at Warwick and the Lanzarote Hurdle down at Kempton. Now then, gents, how you doing?
All good, thanks. Can't wait to get stuck into these two real competitive handicaps.
Yeah, Matt, the Warwick Classic Chase, it must be the sort of race that you really want to get your teeth stuck into.
Yeah, cracking betting race, isn't it? It's really good, and we talk about a lot of these Saturday handicaps where they're kind of really tightly knit, only sort of £7 or £8 between them. Well, if you look at this, there's best part of 2 stone between top and bottom, so varying amounts of experience in these chases as well. You've got sort of a couple of 7-year-olds, one for Willie Mullins. We've got to point that out as well. That's Mr. Incredible. He doesn't score particularly highly on the time form ratings yet because he's got a bit of a squiggle, I think, this horse. He's got some own ideas of his own. Lord de Menil, a real experienced horse, a horse that could well be suited by conditions this weekend as well. So plenty to consider, plenty to thrash out over the next few minutes with Kieran, and I can't wait to highlight a few fancies in this.
Yeah, we saw Commodore there, Kieran, in the top 5 in the ratings, and he's the sort of bold jumping grey that you can just see winging around Warwick.
Yeah, you see him here in the green cap. He actually won this race at Cheltenham on his reappearance last season, and he finishes 5th this year. He just gets a bit tired coming towards the last. Now, he is the type that will be suited by Warwick. He has won here in the past. The only thing you'd worry is he going to actually come on for this? He's now 11, and Venetia has her as very fit, doesn't she, first time out? She had the other side.
Yeah, he's just fading there in the green cap this day, but you wouldn't put a line through him on the basis that he was a weak finisher at Cheltenham.
No, he could well step up for it, but this is a much more competitive event than the one Evers Oscar won at Cheltenham as well. That wasn't a particularly strong race for the grade, whereas as you look at this race, we've got plenty of potential improvers, we've got plenty of mudlarks in it as well, and it's definitely going to be a strong test at the trip. And
plenty of potential front runners, I think. We'll just look at the pace map, because Commodore could be one of them. We've mentioned Lord de Mesnil, he could be one of them. Just on the pace in the Classic Chase, Matt, how important is it to get in a rhythm at Warwick?
I think it is
You're looking at front runners potentially.
Yeah, it is a good rhythm track. You can win this race from the back as well. We've seen that before, but it is a good rhythm track. I think if you make early mistakes, everything's accentuated, isn't it? I could certainly see a horse maybe like Grumpy Charlie just getting a little bit too far back. I don't want to be too far back, not with a circuit to travel. It's not really the sort of track that you can make up a huge amount of ground, whereas again, keep coming back to old Grumpy Charlie, who did me a favour last time at Newbury. If you compare this to Newbury, look at Newbury's long, lengthy straight where he just took forever to get going and get grinding. At Warwick, there can be away and gone, those horses that have just been positioned a bit further forward. You've got Nesta Park in there as well, and obviously we've got to mention 3 under through 5. I suspect he will be prominent. He unseated at the very first fence. The Coral Gold Cup was his big early season target. They're happy to sort of sit and wait. I suspect they might have been tempted into running at some of these Christmas meetings as well, maybe at Chepstow, but they've come here, they've decided to go for this, and you've got to respect Paul Nicholls, whatever he's running in any race over the weekend.
You mentioned Grumpy Charlie there. I've got a little stat for you. I was a little bit worried about Grumpy Charlie coming off the back of a 2-week break, but looking through the past 20 renewals this century, 6 horses have come and won this race on the back of a break of 18 days or less. Surprising, isn't it?
It is, yeah. I do think with Grumpy Charlie, it was a case of job done last time. I think they really primed him for that, and this is a bit of afterthought, but that's taken me aback, that, because you presume with these stayers, they need a long time between races.
I knew it would, Kieran. I knew it would. But I want you to chat about Guetapan Calonge, because if there's one horse in the race that could be really well handicapped, it's this one.
Oh, absolutely. He's there right at the bottom of the way. It's 10 stone 3 off a rating of 126. This is when he was successful here last time. He beat a horse called Riley, and he's 3 over 6 from fences, including this victory here. And the Charlie Longson team, they've been having a really good time of it of late, haven't they? Especially with Lily Pinchin on board. But Richie McLearn's on board today. John Joe Neal Jr. rode this day. You see him here, he just sort of asserts from the last. The issue I have with this horse, as you just see there, is jumping's not the best. And You look at the races he's won over fences, 6-runner race, 7-runner race, 6-runner race. Is he going to have the jumping ability to stay in contention? If he clouts a few down the back when they're going a real good lick in this, you're just worried. That would be my main issue for him.
Yeah, can I be a bit more positive about him? Because I've looked back through him, and what he doesn't necessarily clout them, but he can over jump, and that's what happened in the match race at Sedgefield when he fell. He really over jumped. He was almost too exuberant, and we saw it there. I think that was a result of him having still plenty in the tank, and I know it was a slightly iffy mistake there at the last, but he cleared it perfectly well, and he does measure his fences quite well. He's improved certainly since we saw him last season at Market Raise, and I think his jumping has improved. And I think the real key thing with him, and really to stress that, to loop back to how I started, is that there's nearly 2 stone between these. They've waited 74 days for this race, and it couldn't have worked out better from a handicapping point of view. He's basically got in here off bottom weight. Volcano's below him, but he's £10 out of the handicap. So Guetapan Collonges, they've waited since November the 1st when he won over this course and distance. Over this course a bit shorter, where he was staying on all the way to the line. I think this is a real masterful piece of planning by the JP McManus team. He's a full brother to Fontaine Collonges, Venetia Williams staying mare, and she won at Warwick as well. So I'd suspect the Classic Chase has been high on this horse's agenda from the very start, and so far so good with him. I think it's mapped out nicely.
Does that make him a nephew of Neptune?
It makes him a nephew, yeah. Uncle Neptune. He'll be hoping to do Uncle Neptune Collonges proud in the Classic Chase.
Okay, let's wrap it up there. Yeah, you were positive on him. Is he your selection, Matt?
Yeah, I'm going to back 2 in this because I'm quite keen to take on 300 through 5. I'm going to take on Mr. Incredible as well. I'm going to back Guetapan Collonges, hopefully 7-8 to 1. That represents a really good bet. And I can't let Lord de Menil go as well unbacked. I think Paul O'Brien might be the key to him. He was back on him after a spell not riding the horse at Bangor when we last saw him. Finished second to Limilos. Form's worked out superb.
Yeah, Cheap Piece is back on as well, and you think this is going to be a real gruelling test. He's a proper sluggard, isn't he? He won the Grand National Trial at Haydock off a £3 higher mark than this a few years ago. The Richard Hobson team in much better form than what they have been as well. So he'd be my selection, 9 to 1. You can get first 5 places with Sky Bet. That's just unbelievable bet at 8 to 1 with them.
So two votes for Lord de Menil. It's not like this when I'm on the panel. It's normally disagreements all the way.
Very quick mention for Mr. Incredible. He's had 1 run for Willie Mullins when he was brought down in the Paddy Power. Now he refused to race 3 starts ago. He almost refused to race 2 starts ago. So he's very short in the betting for a horse with a bit of temperament, and there was a story doing the rounds in the office that one of our colleagues was on a stable tour and there was a dog on loose around the yard and he just stood still and refused to move. So he's definitely quirky, of one way to putting it. So he's one to keep.
I might take the Schnauzer down on
Well, I was going to say, hopefully there's no Labradors down at the start in the Classic Chase. Watch out for Mr. Incredible when they jump off. But yeah, really good race. And 20 minutes before that, we've got another cracking handicap to have a go at in the Lanzarote hurdle down at Kempston. A huge field, 2 mile 5 handicap hurdle. And Kieran, when you look at the time form, top rated horses here, it looks a really competitive renewal. But then you've got the 156p, the Charles Burns train, Green Glory at the top there, which might be scaring the bookmakers.
Yeah, just the name Charles Burns, and you've already clipped a few points off these days, haven't you? But yeah, you see there's only £4 in the ratings between the top 8, and this is ultra competitive. Sometimes Lanzarote of recent years, you could say it's not really a race, it was, but this is a brilliant race. You've got some horses coming back from chasing, you've got some unexposed types there at the top of the betting, and Green Glory, we're going to see him in a bit. Well, just a quick word for Parole. He was 6th in this last year and he comes here off a lower mark, and it's his seasonal reappearance for a yard going well. I know that you might touch on that a bit later as well, Matt. And Mickey Henderson actually has a really good record in this, so Ralph McNee might be one to keep on side, but that was a real test of speed at Doncaster last time when he won in a small field. This is going to be a thorough test at the trip, and I just worry that there might be stronger stayers for him. But yeah, Green Glory, he won a novice handicap at Leopardstown over Christmas, didn't he, Matt?
He did, and he really delivered, didn't he, on the promise that he'd shown in his maidens, because let's be honest, the money was down. He was 7 to 4 this day in a 20 runner novices handicap at one of the most competitive meetings of the year in Ireland, and he got the job done very, very well. If you look at him here, he just has a little look. He has a think about it, I think, initially. He may be going to hang him behind that leader. That himself, the runner-up there, was Henry de Bromhead horse, who'd won a Cork Maiden very impressively. So I suspect it is decent enough form. Maybe some of the beaten horses are a bit ropey, but this is a progressive horse. You can see with the time form P. He's already top-rated. I mean, you said it yourself, Kieran, like, look, he's no price whatsoever, really. I suspect he might get even shorter. I know there was rumours on Thursday evening of Charles Burns maybe struggling to get the horse across, given the weather conditions and everything from Ireland, but I don't know if that was a bit of a smokescreen myself.
Up £16.
Yeah.
What do you think?
Well, like, he gets in here off 10.8 and Philip Burns takes off 5, so he's found himself in a very nice position in a valuable race. I think it was perfectly well plotted.
He's the type of horse you wouldn't be surprised if he lined up in a Coral Cup off 140, and you'd probably be favourite there if he won this. He's just that typical Burns progressive type, but the problem is his price, isn't he? He's 4-1 in a big field like this. You probably take him on out the price.
I'm sure we can try and find a few each way bets, and we can do that by looking at how this is going to be run, because this is another vital way to approach the race, isn't it? A Lanzarote hurdle, huge field. You want to be knowing where your selection is going to be in the early stages, and you look at that pace map, Matt, and it could be run at a really good gallop this.
It could be, to be honest, Scoop. Last year's wasn't, and everyone thought it was going to be. And you do see it in Betfair hurdles and some of these big Saturday handicap hurdles where you expect a fierce gallop and they just go a bit slow through the middle section of the race. And it happened last year. Cobbler's Dream and Highway 102, they were first and second throughout and ended up that way, where you don't often think that would pan out that way in these competitive handicaps. I suspect Cobbler's Dream might be close enough to the pace this time around. You got Quinta de Mar, he's going to be up there, I'd imagine. Staghorn possibly, he's a bit of quite a strong stay at the trip. And you mentioned Up for Parole. I quite like this horse. Gavin Sheehan held him up last year. He ended up running on for 6. He stayed on quite nicely in the straight. And I just don't think he was in a brilliant position. He performed perfectly well, went off the boil a little bit after that, but now it's interesting that Jamie Snowden, who's in pretty good form himself, brings him back for this race. You know, they suspect rated 129 now. They could have gone for a slightly lesser race. This is a real nice race to be running in first time out, so I wouldn't have thought he'd be lacking for fitness, and Sheehan would be quite keen to not atone for last year, but he won't make the same mistake and sit right in the rear with them going slower, and he's a really good tactical judge, I'd say.
He's dead interesting, and one I've picked out, Kieran, is Hermes Boy,
Yeah.
who I really like at the bottom of the weights. We can see him here. We can't see him at the moment because he's in the orange silks just off picture, but he's going to stay on into 4th. We'll see when the camera switches.
Does he get involved, lads?
Well, this is 2 miles.
There you go, look.
There you see him on the inside in about 6 there. He keeps plugging on up that Sandown Hill. Now, this was 2 miles, and this form couldn't have worked out better. You've got Love Envoy winning, who obviously won again last time. The second horse came out and won at Leicester over the Christmas period, and he just keeps going up the hill here, Hermes Boy. He has run since over a similar trip to this at Utoxeter last time out, and he finished second to a really progressive horse of Evan Williams called Can You Call.
And if we see when they're crossing the line here, Kieran, the 6 horse came out and won as well at Musselburgh. So It is really red hot form.
Yeah. So that's a really, really strong piece of form. And he's only got 10 stone too. He's a pound out with the handicap. But if this does turn into a thorough test, the lighter weight, the better. Jane Williams having a fantastic run of things the last 2 weeks. She's in probably the form of her life at the minute. So yeah, he'd definitely be an each way player.
Red hot form, Jane Williams. Right then, let's wrap up with your Lanzarote selections, Matt.
Yeah, I think I'm going to be going 2 by 2, as the old phrase says, in these 2 big Saturday handicaps. So I am going to go with up for Parole. I think he's got a really good squeak around 20-25-1. And I'm going to take a chance on Rath McNee, the Henderson horse. You'd imagine Henderson will have targeted a Lanzarote. Like you say, he's won it 4 times with this horse. He's only really raced on good ground, but he is actually bred to stay. He's bred to get 3 miles. I suspect he might want a real test at the trip. So if he gets away on the ground, Nico de Bonville's been booked on him since the start of the week. I thought it was quite significant. And he, again, gets in off 126. I'd be surprised if he didn't have a little bit in hand from that. So Rath McNee and Up for Parole.
And Kieran?
Yeah, a couple for me. Probably the stronger of the two is Dubrovnik Harry, who was 3rd in the EBF final, his final start last season on his handicap debut. That's a rock solid piece of form behind Complete Unknown, as you'd expect, as winners left, right and centre out of that. He made his chaser debut at Exeter when he was 3rd off the back of a wind-up, and he hasn't run since. Now, he didn't really take to chasing. He made a few mistakes, but I just have it in the back of my mind that Connections have preserved that hurdles mark of 1 to 8, and they've thought we'll go pot hunting over hurdles instead. And he's still unexposed. He's had 2 runs in handicaps. He's got a really good weight in 10 stone 9, and the rain would be in his favour. He's probably going to stay 3 miles, so he's going to be a strong stayer at the trip. You'd expect him to be up with the pace. I think he's got a very good chance. And the other one I'll give a strong mention to is Petit Tonnerre, who was runner-up to Red Risk at Newbury last time. Now, that was on good ground, and he's a big strapping horse. He's definitely going to make a chaser. He's trained by John Joe O'Neill, and I think he's a nice horse going forward, this, and I think he's really going to be suited by the way this is going to be developed, and a bit of cutting the ground will suit him well. So they'd be the two against the field. They're about 8s and 12s, so again, a couple of each way players.
I like it. 4 against the field for the panel in the Lanzarote hurdle. I'm sticking with Hermes Boy each way. Thanks for watching. Do check out Sporting Life and Timeform for all your tips and data this weekend. Have a great one, and we'll see you next week.